Yesterday we got started on this with the rocks down here, and we put this first layer on as a reminder, or if you're just joining us, this is the tower from book 3 of The Story Keeper's Daughter, or it's going to be the tower. I'm working on book 3 right now, and so I'm using this to help me visualize what that's going to look like so that I can describe it in the book for you all effectively. So right now what I'm doing is painting it, because this is kind of part of my process, so that I can effectively describe people and places on the page. Sometimes I need to get them someplace else. And one of the places else is painting them. So I'm working on painting the tower, one of the towers from book 3. So what I'm going to do right now, though, is not yet return to the next layer on the rocks down here. I need to do at least one more layer, probably 2 layers on the tower itself. As you can see, I mean, it's nowhere near done. So I'm going to do another layer here. Down here, I used more of a matte finished base, and up here I use a gloss because obviously I want this to shimmer a lot more. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that. A lot like before, I'm not going to mix this off of the canvas. Sometimes I do. Just because of the size that I'm working with here, I don't actually mix this off of the canvas. I just go ahead and do it, just plop it right on the canvas because it's big. If it were smaller, I would probably use one of these to mix it in. But because it is so big, I'm just doing it all right here and just going to deal with it that way. Let me actually set this to the side here real quick because I want to work with the various sparkles first. It's the sparkling that always makes me think of The Secret of NIMH. If anybody, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, oh my gosh. But it's a sparkly Mrs. Brisby, if anybody has watched it. Always makes me think of that line. But I like the sparklies. So just put a little layer. And there's no right way or wrong way to do this. I'm a big proponent of there's no right or wrong way to do art. I'm also a big proponent of you learn the skills and you certainly learn the various different techniques so that you can get really good, so that you can break the rules. Basically, you learn the rules so that you can break the rules. When I taught, I used to tell my students that. I don't know how many of them ever really took that in, but I would tell them you play by the rules till you make the rules. Whenever they would get ready to do something really stupid, like go and talk back to the principal or talk back to another teacher that was just not going to get them anywhere. I would try to get to them and say, you play by the rules till you make the rules. Please don't do this thing that's really gonna only get you in trouble right now. It doesn't always work that way, obviously. Obviously, that's can be short-sighted, and nothing is always or never. Nothing. And sometimes you gotta break the rules because nobody's listening to you, and you can't play by the rules anymore because the people making them, well, aren't playing by them either. So, we know that also. So there is no always situation. All right, let's see. We got our glue, we got our pigment. For what it's worth down there, our pigment is glitter and white. And so what we're gonna do now is attack it with a nice paintbrush. As you all might have heard me say in a previous one of these, I am notorious for not cleaning up after myself real well. So there are always dirty paintbrushes sticking in water around here. not cool. I will get better about that, particularly as this shop opens up, this studio opens up to other people to use it. You gotta clean up after yourself. And, you know, that's part of being in society, right? We gotta clean up after ourselves. So if I'm gonna share my space, I gotta clean up after myself. Alright, that's all we do now. We just spread her around, and it doesn't look like it's doing a ton. But when you put it over top of those places where there's color, you can already start to see. And we'll just keep on building it up. And I'll probably have to add some more. This will definitely be the one that takes the most layers. And of course, there's another layer going on. There's at least 2 more layers going on for the stone. At least 2 more layers going on for the stone. That's the big thing with this is, and I think it's with art, it's really with anything. Anything. Trust the process. You gotta kind of already know what it is you're doing. Have practiced it a lot. Practice, oh my gosh, practice is so important. And then just be able to trust the process, because there are definitely points during this where doesn't look like it's gonna look so great. You know, there are just certain points where it's like, how could that turn out to be something particularly pretty? I'm not sure what you're doing there. And you've just got to know that the process is working towards something. And that is practice, you know, by practicing and knowing the process. And again, so true of everything and not just art. You get good at it. You figure out how all of your tools are going to behave and how they're going to behave under different circumstances. And then you can anticipate. Sometimes people think you're predicting the future. But really, it's just that you've practiced and you've paid attention and you've used your tools a lot. Whatever those happen to be. My gosh, that could be your paintbrush, that could be, I don't know, project management software, I don't know. But just being able to anticipate what's going to come next, what's going to go wrong, how things are going to happen. That's all part of being good at what you do and having time for rehearsal, practice. Builds confidence, because how can you have confidence and trust the process, aka trust yourself, if you don't ever have a theater to test the hard things in, right? And again, I'm definitely not talking about art anymore. I hate talking about time. I spent decades, decades, whenever you can talk about your life in decades. But I spent decades of my life at this point working in Well, certainly working in education. I mean, that's easy peasy. But working in training and consulting, and that's really all we are ever talking about, was making sure, that's a multi-million, is it $billion industry? And it's really all about making sure people have authentic rehearsal outside of their real work environments. And even more powerfully, because we know how people learn, inside their work environments, where they can practice, reflect. That's huge. Reflection is so huge. The ability to actually think about your thinking, metacognition, reflection. How did I think about this? How did I approach this problem? Why did I approach it this way? What things from my background came in to my thinking? It's so cool to consider your thought process that way. And to really go back and reflect on why you make decisions. And not even necessarily big decisions, like just on a normal day, like, why did I do the things I did? And what assumptions did I bring to my behaviors and responses that were maybe not based in reality, that were based in assumptions, that were based in my own biases, frankly. And we say that with, I think we've been taught that that's a bad word, and biases are just what we are. We're human, and we are wired to have biases. It is part of our survival instinct to recognize differences and catalog those really quickly, because it used to be really critical for our long-term survival in ways that it's not as much now. And might argue that a little bit, but not as much now. And so we're wired to make those split decisions for our survival, which does not mean that they're bad at all, but it does mean, yikes, that we have grown past fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. I digress. I'm looking to see if there's, I don't like the way that looks down here. I'm sure you've noticed, have a somewhat difficult time maintaining a coherent train of thought. But hey, if you're gonna go on this ride with me, let's go on this ride. If you're still here, you're still here. All right, now that dries. I don't like that. Okay, now. Now this dries. And I'm gonna move on to that because I can actually do the rocks while the tower dries. So that's what I'm gonna move on and do.